Karibuni sana. Thank you for joining us for our first panel of the day. And we're going to be talking about children and biophilia. So we're, just as Nasra has introduced the day, she's talked about how we're reclaiming and reconnecting. This is not something new to us. This is something that's been in our culture. This is our heritage. And as we think of how Roberta phrased it yesterday, how can we be the best kind of ancestors, right? We want to leave a good legacy, and that is through our children. So we have two very brilliant professional educators of their own specific kind. So we're going to start with Dr. Kioko, and then we'll go to Fezi, and we'll be engaging Mr. Gichuki as well from Freedom International Schools. So at the very beginning, I just want us to, in the simplest way, put it down as, first tell us your own experience, what exactly you do in relation to education, and then tell us what, in the context of your work, what does it mean to educate with nature or biophilia in mind? Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good morning. As my name has been said, I'm Dr. James Kioko, the school director, Nairobi Waldorf School Trust. It's a school in Karen, and we also have a branch in Lavington. And currently, I am the school director, not very much involved in teaching, but just ensuring that the environment where the students are learning is conducive. And I'm sure when you talk about conducive learning environment, it means different things to different people. But in world of education, for us, we believe that a conducive learning environment is an environment where the students interact with nature. So actually, we talk of nature-based education. And looking at the children and looking at what we believe as educators is if the children thrive in a very natural environment, the rate of learning is increased, and at the same time, you realize that they don't struggle to learn because they're interacting with what they need to interact with. And I want to ask you a very simple question. When children are out, you'll always realize that they are either attracted to mud, to go and play with water, to go and climb trees, and that is the kind of environment that the Nairobi Waldorf School Trust has provided for our students. Because we believe that when children connect with nature at an early age, you will not need to tell them to take care of nature. If they connect with nature at a very early age, you will not need to tell them to take care of nature. The challenge that we are facing, and why I'm very happy with what the Green Biophilic is doing, is we grew without connection with nature. And what this conference is telling us, we need to go back to the roots and connect with nature. When students grow in that environment where they're interacting with nature, even in their further studies, as they do their research, as they do their innovation, you realize that nature is part of what they look at. We are in a school where I would say a school inside a forest. Actually, when we were looking for architects, we were telling them, we don't want a school where you only come here and do 4 corners. Our classrooms actually are not in any design of what we have currently in schools. It is outside the box thinking. Because inside that forest, we informed the architects that we did not want to cut trees. So they had to come and work around the trees. We told them that we did not want to change the landscape of the school. They need to come and work with that natural environment. So in so doing, you realize that when interacting with nature, our students play with mud, our students go to the garden, our students climb trees. Actually, if you're a parent in that school and you come during break time, you'll keep screaming saying my child will fall. Because we allow them to interact with nature. And actually what you pack for them, apart from the very many snacks and things you pack, for us we insist, pack for them change of clothes. Because they will get dirty, they will interact with mud, they will play in water, and that is now what makes them to grow. So why we so much focus on this is because when you allow them to interact with nature, you open their minds. And when their minds are opened, they can analyze, they can critique, they can imagine, they can create, and it becomes very easy for them. And that is why, even if you leave a child outside there and you don't give them anything to do, within very few minutes, you'll come and find them doing something. Because the environment is allowing them to do that. So what I'm looking at is a situation whereby, because I'm up in this house as architects and designers, as you design, let's think outside the box and design structures and spaces where students will thrive. I saw the card from Wangui, which is talking about green spaces, happy faces. I can confirm to you, we have happy children at the Nairobi Waldorf School. One of these days you can visit. Then you'll confirm what Wangui has written there is 100% accurate. Thank you for now.
Good morning again, everyone. The work that I do is based around African indigenous culture, spirituality, and nature. So in terms of how I approach education, I look at it from a larger umbrella of regeneration. So being regenerative is also being biophilic, but it's looking at the whole ecosystem. So we have been speaking about the built environment over here, but we are looking at the ecosystem of the child from the inside outside. So not just the buildings and the structures, but what I like to call a life shed. What is a life shed around which a child is being educated? And so for us, when we are looking at education, we are not looking at schooling, we are looking at education, because schooling is not necessarily education. So the space that I work in, I work with a group, I work with homeschooled kids, because I myself am a homeschooler. So my story is that I lived in Canada for a number of years, got married, had my children, then we decided to come back home because we felt Africa was calling us back. And we wanted our children to be raised here and to understand who they are as Africans. And when we came, the challenge was trying to find schools. We went up and down everywhere in Nairobi looking for schools, but we didn't find a place that we felt fitted this outlook that we had. And, but the one place where we finally found a home was at the Waldorf School, interestingly. And our children attended Waldorf for just 1 year, but it was very expensive. And so if you're looking at life shares, ecosystems, and where people are finding themselves, the good schools are available, but they are not accessible. So this problem of not being able to find a place where our children could fit in and that we can pay for led me on this education journey. So I started educating my children by myself. It was a very difficult journey. I studied and I found resources and materials, and we ended up centering our learning around who they are as Africans, where do you live, what exists in our environment, and more importantly, who do you think you are and what is it that you want to contribute to society. So our education was centered around beneficence. And if you talk about the idea of beneficence, it's not just benefit to you, but benefit to your community and benefit to the place where your feet are. This is where we are planted. We are the children of the soil. How can you be of benefit to the soil? So that is, if you ask me what my curriculum is, that is my curriculum. It is spiritual, it is ecological, it is centered around community. And sometimes people like to talk about student-centered curriculum. Ours is not student-centered, ours is life-centered. It is centered around life. And so when you're teaching mathematics and English and history, you are looking at how life is rolling out, how life is playing, and we are not putting things into you, we are discovering what is inside of you and how that is interacting with the community that you live in and how that is going to be of benefit to the community that you live in. And not only that, but we're also thinking about legacy. And when you think about legacy, you have to remember your past. And we are Africans, we live here, we are people of the soil. What does it mean to be African? And what is the contribution that we as Africans want to make, not only to our nation, Kenya, and our continent, but to the world, which also makes you a global person. It makes you somebody who thinks critically about other cultures, about technology, about the things that are going on in the world. And so I started off with my 3 daughters. They are now 24, 21, and the youngest is 18. They are basically finished their high school education. My oldest one is a musician, an artist, and a writer. My middle one is a teacher. She wants to study teaching and film. So she's getting ready to go to the Ontario College of Arts and Design to study film, but then she wants to do a master's and become a teacher. And she's also currently volunteering at the Waldorf School. And my youngest one is a dancer. And I'm telling you all of these things to say that about the place where I work. It's called Kitovu Learning Space, and we were working, the work that started with my children ended up extending very naturally to the rest of the community, because when you're homeschooling, it's just you at home alone with the kids, and they said, Mom, we need friends, I can't do this by myself, because they'd been at school before. So I spoke to a couple of moms, and we started a co-op at our home with 14 children. By the time we closed, and there's a reason why, COVID struck, and we had 80 children that were attending, and we were teaching curriculum that was centered around the arts, because that just comes naturally. The arts, they lead to creativity, but they open up doors into other arenas. And so we were studying fine arts. We had a maker space where we combined technology, engineering, mathematics, and the arts together. So you've heard of the STEM curriculum. We did the STEAM curriculum. And then we had sports, and we had music, and we decided not to teach guitar. Like, you know, we play. You see how we had the combination of the different instruments. So we decided not to go with the guitars and the normal ones. We decided to teach the instruments that are indigenous to us: nyatiti, marimba, bunde. And by the way, some of the guys in the band also work with me at the school teaching music as well. And then we did creative writing as well, which opened up doors into history, into African studies. So they were learning how to write creatively about themselves and the world, but then in order to be creative, you have to understand where you live. They were writing about Beyonce, they were studying communism, everything under the sun, because the world is larger than just what you do in English literature or grammar or other studies. And so we ended up having a lot of children coming from the neighborhood, inquiries from the city, and our curriculum was very eclectic. It was very responsive, and our space is just like at the Waldorf School, is out in a gazebo, out in nature. There's trees, there's dogs running around, there's chickens. We also did gardening as well. The children would go out and engage, and we would do field trips around the city to the museum, or they would visit industry and engage with people that are working in the real world, so that our learning is connected to what is going on in the real world. Then we started having collaborations, because people were interested in us, the word started going out. We started having collaborations. Well, when we'd go to an industry professional person, sometimes, for example, there's another little school that was in Kitusuru, and we collaborated with them to run the United Nations, what's it called? United Nations, why am I forgetting? Model UN. It's called the Model United Nations. So the children learned how to write policy, how to debate, and they would engage with children not only from Nairobi, but children from all over East Africa, learning how to lead, learning leadership skills. And we collaborated with the Safaricom Center. The children would go there and make performances with schools. From the work that they were doing in creative writing and performing arts, that work would be taken out into the community so that the kids could test that what they were doing was relevant in society. We also did community service, where the children would participate in music therapy or different projects in the community, where, again, learning has to be connected with what is going on in the real world, but not only the real world, but what's going on with place, our soil, the place where we live. So that's in a nutshell.
Yes, take your flowers. Yeah, in a nutshell, you said. So let's hear from Mr. Maina as well. Mr. Maina, do tell us your role in this context, and if you would also tell us about, take us through how Afrocentric learning, the Afrocentric curriculum at Freedom International Schools, how it's different from other learning models.
Okay, so I hope I'm loud and clear. So today I'm going to talk about rooted and rising, and Afrocentric education, more so here at Freedom International School. So good morning, everyone, and it's a privilege to speak with you today on behalf of the school. And at Freedom, we believe that education should not erase who a child is. Instead, it should empower them to become even more rooted to their heritage, more connected to their land, and even more confident with their own identity. So this is an institution where learning is rooted in African identity, environmental consciousness, and also cultural integrity. Now, we usually do what we call an IB curriculum, that is the International Baccalaureate. And apart from that, we have something called Afrocentrism. So our curriculum is more Afrocentric. What do I mean with Afrocentric? Afrocentrism is just being African-centered, trying to make sure that these children are claiming their pride, their identity, and also their belonging. So our curriculum is not just Afrocentric in name, but in action. We teach our students that African history did not begin with colonization, as we are told. It began thousands of years before. And this is history that has been erased. In most cases, if you ask our students about their history, they'll tell you from colonization. We had queens and kings. We had the Nubian, a queen such as Amanirenas. We had people like Mansa Musa, who was a wealthy, the richest man who ever existed and full of wisdom. Okay? And other countless unnamed leaders, I can't mention all. We had scientists, we had builders, we had philosophers who built civilization across the continent. But all this is not taught to our kids. So through these stories, students are able to learn that they come from brilliance. That pride is not something that they must be taught. It is something that they must be reminded of because it is in them. So basically, that is what we do here. So some of the other things that we do, that we ensure we celebrate African themes, African days. Like every Thursday, we have Ankara Thursday, and we allow our school students to come wearing in African wares or outfits, African prints, from dashikis, dresses, anything that proudly embraces the African heritage. And apart from that, we teach our mother tongue. So students can speak mother tongue. Talk of Maasai's, Kalenjin, Kikuyu, the Kisii, the Luo, name them. As long as you're in this school and your mother tongue is this, you learn. And apart from that, we also teach local languages. So I can be Kikuyu, but I'm also learning Luo. Okay? Because language is more than communication. Language is culture. Language is memory. Language is identity. Also, our students wear tarizi, which is now kind of the uniform. Um, and these tarisis usually reflect dignity, simplicity, identity, rather than the normal uniforms that we are used in other schools. So I can also talk about the environment of the school. So an Afrocentric curriculum also recognizes the earth and its commodity. We teach about minerals that are in Africa, the importance of these minerals. You all understand what is happening in West Africa. With the Europeans, we mine, but we don't use our own minerals. They are used by other countries. A country like France is the second world largest country that has reserved gold. Yet a country like Burkina Faso or Mali is the poorest. And the gold in France is gotten from these West African countries. France has zero mines for gold, yet very rich in gold. How? So we try and bring in this kind of history for these kids to plan for the future. So in our last term, our students were able also to explore different things in relation to environment and tradition. And they were looking at indigenous African seeds, a powerful lesson on environmental sustainability and also how we can preserve our own culture. So with the threat of our own seeds, the ones that existed before becoming extinct, we were able to come up with different projects, some even making their own personal seed banks, collecting, preserving, documenting local varieties, visiting farmers, and gathering knowledge. Okay?
All right.
And we found these quite helpful. And this is all Afrocentrism. So we have brought in culture, and apart from culture, nature also comes in. Okay, the kind of storytelling that is here, the use of language as a tool of empowerment is part of this Afrocentric curriculum.
Okay,
The
Maina,
kids are
let me
Yes.
actually, I want to just pivot from there. Thank you for bringing out that whole, the point how it feels like you're saying this Afrocentric curriculum is like the soul of the school. It's the soul of, you know, learning where we come from and then also learning where we're going. And just before you pivot from that, I'll be right back to you. I want to understand how, let's say, the design of a school, the physical architectural design of a school is now the body. If the curriculum is the soul, perhaps the architecture is the body. So I would like, along those lines, for you, Dr. Kioko, to tell us the advantages you have seen children experience from a nature-based school, from a nature solution-oriented school.
Okay, thank you very much. Looking at nature-based environment, one, I think there's something that has been said that our school is expensive. But I would like to say that for sure it is, because to bring it to the level where when you come you feel like you are connected with nature, it takes resources. Actually, most people when they come to that side, they tell us we are at the campsite. They think that's a campsite. We are at the campsite, so where is the school? We tell them that campsite is the school. So there are quite a number of benefits when you have nature-based learning. And they are very well captured actually in the Green Biophilic video. One, if you teach a child in an environment where they are connected with nature, they always have a very good opportunity for creativity. They have a very good opportunity also for imagination. They can even sit outside there as they interact with the soil, as they sit under those trees, as they climb and sit somewhere on the trees, they can do some reflection. The other thing that we have seen, students who interact with nature have a longer concentration span. And even apart from the longer concentration span, they can reason outside abstract issues. And we have a challenge. Actually, at the Waldorf School, we discourage technology up to the age of 12. Because what happens when these children interact with the technology very early, sometimes it does not make them to imagine, does not make them creative. And I would like to give you an example. You can have a student on a phone or the TV for 3-4 hours, non-stop. Tell them to sit and read. In 10 minutes, Mom, Dad, I'm done. Or they are sleeping, or they have even lost the concentration. So when students interact with nature, there is some good concentration. The other one, which we have seen, because our school is also inclusive, where we have students who are enabled differently, interacting with nature is therapeutic. Yes, you find that sometimes you don't need a therapist. You just need to walk around there, play with the water, play with the mud, see what's happening, and they're good to go. The other thing that we have seen is that it also provides a sense of well-being. You feel connected. You feel part of the place. Actually, I've taught in a number of schools, but this is the only school where students cry not to go home. I'm sure parents have experienced students cry not to go to school. Ours is the opposite. They cry not to go because they easily connect. And if a parent actually visits our school, maybe for observation, they want their students to join, there are times that we even have to have conversations with them to see how to help them, because the moment a child gets to that environment, within the first 10 minutes, they are sold. You'll find them at the animal place. Others are even playing with our children because their environment is very welcoming and calling. So what I would say is nature-based learning creates a sense of well-being, a sense of belonging, and a student will feel this is actually where I belong. And actually they can identify with whatever is happening. Then finally, you realize that when you have this nature-based learning, students will always be happy. It comes naturally. If you recall those days when you were in school and maybe the teacher says, let's go for a nature walk, let's have lessons outside class, you would see the excitement. So for us, because even the way the classes have been constructed, they have been constructed in a way that the children are interacting with the nature where there is soil, dry leaves. Even most of our teaching aids are either made of cotton, made of wood, stones, natural materials. So that interaction makes the child to be very much at ease. Thank you.
Awesome. I love that. I might have a change of clothes in my bag. Can I join your school?
As early as today.
If I can afford the fee, oh my gosh. So in the meantime, I love that now you've brought up the aspect of how tech can become more of a challenge when it comes to cognitive development and stuff like that. And I'd like to hear Fezi's opinion on that. How do you balance now, especially with the homeschooling or just being outside the kawaida curriculum, when you're teaching, how do you make tech more of an asset than a hindrance to, kids experiencing nature and, their cultural identity?
Yeah, that's a great question. All the children who come to our center are homeschooled at home, and a lot of them do use computers or curriculums that are online. Well, the first thing is that learning happens during certain hours. Children have only so much that they can concentrate. So what we would do, for example, is that you work on a lesson plan, and when it's done, you take a break and you go outside. And once lessons are done, the computer is closed. The computer is only for lessons, just like it would be in school, actually. A lot of schools also use technology right now. And once the lessons are done, you close the computer and everybody goes outside. But I think maybe another way that you can do is embracing technology so that you can use technology to strengthen your knowledge of nature. So a computer is for writing an essay, a computer is for doing research, a computer is for making discoveries that maybe you couldn't make because, like, for example, living in Nairobi, it's very difficult to access libraries. So you can get books and things from your computer, but once you close it, how are you going to synthesize, how are you going to process that knowledge that you got? You have to go out and interact with the world. So, for example, one of the things that we were looking at is like biomimicry, like looking at nature and looking at the technologies of nature and getting inspiration from them, and then you designing something maybe similar to what you've seen, or getting inspiration from nature and making something. So, for example, the children made shoes out of leaves. So they went outside and looked at different kinds of leaves, banana leaves, whatever, and then they were testing which one is strong, well, this one is spiky, maybe I can use the glue or the gum. But they also still have to go online and use technology to find out about, before they go out into what we have in our land, they had to go online, research different kinds of leaves, research different kinds of shoes, and then build their model, and then go outside and get the leaves, put it together. And then one of the ways that we actually leverage technology, they would put their work on Facebook or put their work in platforms where they can share with other people. Because when you do that way, you get feedback. So if somebody likes your post, that is a way of getting feedback rather than maybe writing a test and saying, we did this, give me the, you know. So how do you know that what you are doing is effective? Engaging with other people as well, putting it in platforms that we use today, social media. Do you remember, you guys know Greta Thunberg? She's from, yeah. And so, well, maybe she's a little bit controversial now, depending on what side you want to look at her. But the time when she had the campaign where she was speaking to world leaders and telling them that, listen, there's a crisis looming and we need to do something about it. And she got children from all over the world to take Fridays off. So we're homeschooled, so we don't go to school, but we plugged into that and we had our own initiatives here based on what we're learning. So technology doesn't have to be a problem if you steward it. Technology is to be stewarded, and technology is to be used for our benefit. It should not destroy the lives of our children. And part of the reason why children are being parented by TV and all this because parents are absent. So be present. You go outside with the children. When they come from school, you teach them how to love nature, teach them how to leverage nature. But not only that, teach them that you are part of nature and what is your role in it. How are you going to steward it? How are you going to enhance it? And how are you going to replenish nature? Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, Fezi.
Yeah.
A friend and I were actually just talking about how we see our younger siblings when they come home from like boarding schools in Kawaida 844 curriculum. And these guys are now doing Zoom classes at home during the holiday. The ones in the final year, the Form 4s right now, Zoom classes at night. And the whole day, they've been glued to their screens. No going outside. Kids don't even know how to ride bikes. Because they're being told, you know, study, study, study. KCSE is around the corner, you know. And it doesn't help that now, even with the much younger children, parents are more inclined to, you know, the kid is crying, but, you know, let me give you the iPad so that you can, like, calm down and do something else. So being present as a parent in this generation.
Yeah, I could maybe even speak into that. So again, Zoom is not evil. Zoom is wonderful. So we would use Zoom for projects, for collaboration. Because like when work is done and you need to, they have been given work that they have to go and do, then they will meet on Zoom and talk to other people. Yeah. But we also use Zoom for community service. Like we are involved with people from around the world, and let's say during Breast Cancer Month, there would be a conference and they would sing or make a presentation and be engaging with people from all over the world of different ages. So that is very sad to hear that instead of the children being allowed to take a break and rest their brains, they are still continuing. And now Zoom is being used to abuse the children rather than being used to enhance learning.
If I may speak to that also, one issue that also needs to be looked into is also when we talk of the subjects that these students are taught. At the Waldorf School, we believe that you need also to have some breathe-out lessons where even if students are using the screen, because from age 12 we believe they may be ready for that, though it has to be controlled. So we have breathe-out subjects like they have metalwork, which you cannot do on the screen, you have to go and do it. We also do handwork. Our students start knitting as early as kindergarten. By the time they're in grade 8, they're able even to use the sewing machines. We even teach them woodwork. So from class 6, they'll make shelves, they'll make chairs and take home. So looking at how we can also deal with technology, it is important that we don't just have students glued on the screen. There should be subjects which they will be forced to go either to the shamba and do gardening and all that.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, it is about the controlled aspect of it, you know, and encouraging them to go out and connect, use their hands, do some, create, you know, as opposed to just being stuck there. So thanks for those insights. And so the final question for you, Mr. Maina, before now we head into the Q&A session, I wanted to know how with the Afrocentric curriculum, how do you balance academic expectations and now teaching everything else that comes with Afrocentric education?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, you and the Sauti Soul sound at the back. Soul generation, okay.
Okay.
Did you hear my question?
So I think, yes, I had your question
Okay.
earlier. So I think Afrocentrism and academics, or maybe what the students are learning in class. So basically, when a child comes to school, they learn as usual. They learn what needs to be taught. But what we do, termly, we usually have an Afrocentric view. Then we look, okay, what are these students in the course of this term? So if they're being taught these in maybe different subjects,
Sorry, I think we've lost Maina.
how can our day in, day out, normally, when they're doing mathematics, the examples being used or the questions being given are in line with the Afrocentric theme. The projects that we're giving them also are usually in line with this Afrocentrism. So it becomes quite easy to education and Afrocentrism. Yes.
So you're saying that the values that you instill in them still apply to academic excellence and everything. So it's not like
yes,
it's not like it's interrupted. Okay, all right. That's cool. I'm also looking for a vacancy in your school for myself. I can go to 2 schools at once.
You're welcome.
I need to polish up on my local languages. So I'm opening the floor to...
Maybe I can share the last thing.
Yeah, sure.
This is the last thing.
Yeah.
Okay. I've had Dr. the Waldorf director talking about how they teach, and I think I love the idea. So basically, we have something similar to that. But what we have done, we have set up some kind of huts from different communities where you find somewhere in the school, there is a Manyata, there is a Kikuyu hut. There are different structures that have been made just the way we Africans used to make the huts. So it's kind of a cultural village to bring back the culture in a way, okay? Because even as we're looking at the future and the future designs, I think even our culture in a way can inspire development and growth in engineering and such kind of things. And you can find our students, instead of classes, we have modern classes, but at times a teacher can decide, okay, today we are going to have a lesson in a Maasai Manyata, and that is where the lesson happens. And I think in a way they also come into contact with the culture. They even do lessons outside, which is quite impactful, and we have seen a lot of changes. Thank you.
That's beautiful, actually. Really cool concept. I feel like Dr. Kioko wants to add something.
That's a very good one, because we do it even the way Maina said, like our students in class 3, we have a building block because we teach in blocks. So once the teacher teaches them about building, we allow them to go and look at different cultures, different types of buildings, and they do a model. And when they do a model, they come and present to the school. Show why did you choose a Manyata, why did you choose the coast and all that. Then as a class, they agree on what project to do in the school. Like now, they have started constructing a guard's house in the school. And that will be their project for this year. So every class 3 will always have a project. So we, apart from it being done in the school, we also make sure that we involve the children. And in fact, the designs sometimes look very nice. So in fact, once they do the ones they're doing for this academic year, I will share actually with green biophilic and you see how they look like. Thank you.
Oh, we love that. Nurturing little creatives. Okay, okay. You guys are really switching up the narrative, and I love that for all of us. So quick Q&A, we can take 2 questions in case there's any. If you have any questions, I see there's 1 question here. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to just appreciate the work that you guys are doing in the educational setup. This morning we were just discussing with here about how if we do not start this conversation at that early age, below 12, we lose everything. Most of us are here because it is a passion. We have a passion for nature. And there are many who are not here because they don't have a passion. So if we don't build this passion and culture at an early stage, by the time they are getting to age 12, it's now a struggle. Like someone said, we have to tell them to take care of nature because they did not learn it at an early age. So I just wanted to ask a question to Dr. Kioko maybe, and the entire panel basically. I think one of the biggest challenges that we have is minds seem to be colonized to think like, for example, our African culture was backward, poor, you know, like yesterday someone was talking about building materials. We just think of the concrete jungle, and we think our traditional huts that were made of mud were a representation of poverty. So what is your role in the educational setup to decolonize the mind so that our children can think differently? Not to think that soil is bad, is dirt, is backwardness, to think of rainwater as the sweetest drinking water. You know, when we grew up, we would, despite having this tap water in our houses, you would still harvest rainwater when it rains and store it in a pot for drinking. Because what we were taught is that rainwater is the sweetest for drinking. Now, when you go into the current modern way of thinking, they tell you that borehole water is the cleanest. But as a water expert, because that's what I do it's my bread and butter, I know that the most difficult water to treat is a borehole water because of the fluorides in there and the dissolved ions that might be very difficult but might require reverse osmosis for treatment. So what is your role in decolonizing the mind of the children to think in a different way than what we have been taught by our colonial masters and forgetting, you know, assuming that our culture is bad?
Would you guys like to answer that first, then get the next question? Okay, we'll come back to you.
Let me give you my thought. One that we do, and as I've just said, is we don't have a very big challenge to help our students understand about nature, because we start it at a very early age. And when we start it at a very early age, as a school, we have different festivals which are according to the seasons. Like when we are just about to get into the rain season, we have a Shambani festival or a flower festival where you have the children plant seeds. After it rains, they come and watch them grow and all that. So the people we have to deal with actually are not the children, are the parents. The problem is not the child, it is the parent. So a parent comes and says, where are the classes? This look, then we have to explain to them why we have done them with soil, why we have used leaves, why we don't have concrete, it is mud. So once they understand the concept, why we have soil and the impact that the soil has in the learning, why we have so many trees all over, when they say the trees are going to destroy the roofs. We say it's better we do another roof than not meeting the needs of this child academically, socially, physically, and all that. So I think the best answer would be making the parent understand why we are doing what we are doing. And actually, when we started the designs that we have in our school, very few people understood what it meant. But when it was done, and people now came in, now they can understand what it looks like. And it being an international school, I wouldn't actually even think that the structures that are concrete are more of coming from the Western. There are even us Africans and Kenyans who think those structures are not good, but now those who come from outside think this is wow. Like when I look at this, if you come to our school, these are the materials we have used. I have seen some ropes, we have these. So it is very easy to identify with that. So it is us to change our mindset and go back to our roots. In fact, if we go back to our roots, everybody else will follow us. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Dr. Kioko as well. And I think maybe the conversation is around permission. I'm a little different because I'm not in a traditional school setting. And the reason was because I was not waiting for somebody to give me permission. When education was too expensive, I said, well, I'm going to figure it out. And number two, I think a lot of it also has to do with elitism. So schools are expensive, but they don't need to be expensive. Why do we have to? We've been talking about the built environment, and there's a lot of conversations around policy and around like permits and things like that. We also have constructed a building out of mud, but we didn't have a choice but to put concrete around it, because city council came and they were harassing us. So it has kept, in terms of look, it's round and it looks like a traditional African hut. But because the space is within the city limits, the city tells us that it has to be a certain way. So maybe even as, we had the PS here yesterday and there's people in government. Part of that is also lobbying, as much as we're talking to parents and getting parents to understand that our culture. Why do we have to tell you that your culture is important? I wish Mr. Maina was here from the Freedom School. What is wrong with us first? And I think that's the question he's asking. I love what you said about who we are as Africans, our culture. For me, I raised my children, and with the children who come to my space, we don't have an African this and an African that. We have a Nyatiti, we have a pot. We also have kids from Germany, and we had kids from other parts of the world. When they came, they were just here, and they were at home, and home looks a certain way. You know what I'm saying? And there are some kids who came, and they couldn't speak English, but the other kids are speaking Swahili. It wasn't like if you separate and you and you highlight Africanness, you're saying something about Africanness. Well, it could be positive or it could be negative. There's no separation. We're not separate. We're not separate. We're not separate from the land. We're not separate from each other. We are. Education is about who are you, and bringing that out. We don't have to have an African curriculum, although yes, kudos to the Freedom School, and I love that they're called the Freedom School, and the expression is who we are. So if we are trying to be a German school or a Swiss school, which they exist in Nairobi, what are we saying? I think those schools were built for the people who wanted their children to remain connected to their culture. So we build, so I think I'm kind of going round and round because it's a difficult thing. My heart feels heavy. What you're saying is so weighty. What you're saying is so important. And my heart is heavy because we don't love ourselves. And we're talking about biophilia, the love of nature. But you are nature. And this initiative is wonderful and it's necessary. But it's also a bit of a sad thing that we have to tell each other to love nature. It means that we don't love ourselves, because you can't love nature if you don't love yourself. You can't love your skin, you can't love your identity, you can't love your culture. So in the design of the Waldorf School, it's mindful. They are designing around mindfulness because they want the children to be alive, to be healthy, to be themselves. Freedom School is wearing uniforms, they're building manyatas because they are saying, we look like something, we sound like something. But maybe there will be a time when that will not be necessary, because we will just be, and that will be enough. And because we will take care of ourselves, and we will take care of the soil, we'll take care of the land. And others will come here and benefit from who we are, because we understand it and we love who we are. So I think we are both of us, all of us, the three of us are saying, really what we are saying is we're educating for love. I hope.
Got it.
Yeah, maybe I can just touch on that just a bit. I think I love the question because the question is asking about decolonizing our students. And I think that is basically what we do. And that is a very important question. And for you to decolonize the students, you must find, it is the mind, okay? Freedom International School, we are global, okay? So we are not just centered in traditions, but for a child to know who they really are, they need to know their true identity. That is why we take them to the past, we bring them to the present, and we also take them to the future, okay? So, talking of manyatas and how we used to construct and everything, that is not the issue. Did you know that the pyramids in Egypt were built by blacks? Nubians, Egyptians were black at a certain period of time. That is history that you were never told. There is a lot of information you don't know about yourself. What you know, and this is what is affecting majority of the people, is maybe the Europeans or the whites are better than you in everything. And this is what affects us. And this is neo-colonialism. We are still colonized, but in our minds, okay? So the aspect of decolonizing the mind, I think, is very important. If we first do that to our kids, and then we make them understand who they are, we can be able to now take them to the next level, to make them the next innovators, of which our classes are named after. Great innovators, great writers, great Africans, okay? We make them now see the future, knowing who they are and believing in them. Knowing that in Africa, we designed a pyramid which no engineer has even been able to understand how it was made. Okay? And all this information, we need to unpack it to our kids. If we just live a life where our kids are just observing what other people are doing, trying to change their skin color, trying to speak like people who they are not. That is not the right way. So as I wind up, my point is one and clear. It's not about telling students that you used to live in huts on manyatas. Okay? It's making them understand the history beyond that, which is there, and we don't know. And making them connect that with the future. Biophilic is trying to bring in how can we even design houses that will blend with nature. If you look at what all the materials that African used, even a mud thatched house or grass thatched house, which is made of mud, it had its own disadvantages, it had its own advantages. Now, how can we now push that to the next level in the near future? 50 years to come. The design can be good, but you can make a house that will never maybe allow cold or will be soundproof using the natural resources we have. And it's a good design. So it's more than culture. It is beyond culture. And it is something that is even global. Makes students more critical and creative.
Absolutely. Thank you, Maina. I really enjoy how animated you are when you speak. We're going to take the final question. You'll make it brief, right?
I hope so. Yeah, my name is Fezile Wamukoya, and mine is a comment and a question. I am an educator, and I think one of the things I tell my students is that we have normalized bad manners. And what I am picking from the sessions from yesterday and right now is that there is social constructivism that we need to deconstruct, and there is some bad manners we need to discipline. Now, my question comes in, you've talked about being educators. There's a study I did 13 years ago. I didn't know about biophilia, but it was about green outdoor spaces and the mental well-being of children living with disabilities. So what are some of the matrices, like indices? You know, we'd like to see how we can evaluate in an African setting. In the world we have so many indices, but now how can we localize those indicators of wellness to children? I don't want to call them special children. Yes, they are really special to now these other children living with disabilities.
Thanks. Okay, who wants to take that first? I think Fezile looks ready.
Well, I'm just wondering why you want to measure. So you want to know for effectiveness? You're measuring so that you see biophilia is indeed effective?
Yeah, because most of the time, when you're selling an idea, people want to see the benefits, and you want to show them. They want to quantify and really see the benefit beyond the feel. You know, most of the time we use the intangible feel. Now, how can we bring about?
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Well, I guess I'm very resistant to quantifying and measuring, because these are children. These are human beings. I am also one person who's very against tests and exams and stuff, and really where education is going in the world. Soon, very great educative spaces are going to be leaving exams behind, because you're only measuring very thin parameters. You're not measuring the whole person. Exams only indicate how well you can memorize or how well you know. I mean, there's spaces for it. Like you want your surgeon to know what he's doing, but he also has to have practicals and he has to use his hands as well as write paper. But in terms of disabled children, I suppose what you would have to do then is measure brain activity. You could take them and to a doctor or to a psychologist and see. Well, I guess it depends on what the issues are. and then once they have been in those environments, you test to see if there's improvement, if their well-being is better, how they are doing physically by being in nature.
Maybe to add on to that, it may not be very possible to quantify, but you can always make observation. Like as I said, we have students on learning support, and what happens is we usually invite their therapists or their doctors to our school environment, and they observe the children in that environment. Then they now inform the support teachers on what to do. Like you realize that there is a child who may not be able to settle in class, but when you take them to the sandpit and you give them around 5-10 minutes, they calm down, you take them back to class. There are those who will just go do a walk in the forest there, do some simple movements here and there, they calm down and they go back to class. So what I would say is nature has a way of calming us down. Even us, when we go for a walk, maybe Karura Forest or where there is this interaction with nature, is very different than when you're just walking along the road. So what I would say, it may not be possible to quantify, but it is possible to do an observation and see the reaction of the child when they are interacting with nature. Then you can now make a conclusion that when they behave this way, bringing them to interact with nature in a certain way calms them down or brings them to a space now where they can even concentrate or talk. And because, as she has mentioned it, our school, we are not for exams. Actually, what we do at the end of the academic year, we give a parent an assessment report. We never tell students you are number one. No, we tell you this is, actually we say students should learn at their own pace, because we are all enabled differently. And I'm happy because that's where we are heading to. That is where we are heading to with CBC. And as an educationist and somebody who has a lot of passion in education, as you design schools, let us get outside the normal designs and create spaces where these competencies can really be achieved. We are talking about the competency-based curriculum, which has borrowed nearly everything from the Waldorf system. But now when we come to the implementation, that's now where the difference comes in. Because we want these students to be imaginative, creative, critical thinkers, but are we giving them the environment? So my challenge is, as we design schools, can we design schools where students can be able to interact with nature so that there is learning? Like I'm an author of mathematics books, and we usually do group activity before every subtopic. All those group activities are geared towards these students acquiring these competencies, and none of them can be acquired when the student is just seated behind the desk. Challenge for all of us.
All right. Agi, as you wind up, so that I can you, should you, kindly?
Yeah, we're pretty much done. Tafakari ya Babu, he's given us something to think about. But yeah, just to sum it all up, as an advocate and educator of, matters sustainability and climate action, we spend a lot of time thinking about what is the smallest group or most significant group of people that we need to influence for us to actually create social change, visible, tangible, actual social change. And it's sounding like, yes, adults can be rigid sometimes. And as you were talking about, we need to permit ourselves to learn some new things. We need to love ourselves into learning some new things. But it really does sound like the people we should be, that this smallest group might actually just be the children. So thank you so much for your insights, for the amazing work that you guys are doing. And we hope to see more. We really do. And please give us invites. We'd love to join your schools. And we'd love to volunteer with some of the work that you do. So yeah, thank you so much. And let's give a round of applause for our panelists. Thank you, Gichuki. Thank you, Maina, for joining us from Nakuru. And